prepared for this.
Incoming!
T-minus 3, 2, 1.
Go for ignition.
And now, it's too late to stop.
Are we dead? No, we are just inside the moon.
Roland Emmerich's science fiction catastrophe movie Moonfall was released in 2022. A stellar cast including Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley. Here is a quick recap of the movie.
Moving to higher ground is the only possible chance of surviving.
In breaking news, the governor has just ordered the mass evacuation of the entire West Coast.
A science fiction disaster movie from 2022 called Moonfall was co-written, directed, and produced by Roland Emmerich.
Because I'm always like kind of, after like the 2012, I asked myself, so what else could I do? I kind of read this book called Who Built the Moon? And that inspired me to come up with this crazy tale.
Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, John Bradley, Michael P., Charlie Plummer, Kelly Yu, Carolina Bartzak, and Donald Sutherland are among the cast members. It centers on two former astronauts and a conspiracy theorist who learn the true history of the moon after it abruptly departs from its orbit. One of the most costly independent produced movies ever made, it was shot in Montreal on a $138 to $146 million budget. On February 4, 2022, Lionsgate and Summit Entertainment distributed the movie in North America theaters. The same day, Entertainment Film Distributors released it in the UK. It was a box office smash, making $67 million globally, and reviewers gave it mixed reviews. On January 12, 2011, a group of astronauts under the command of Commander Joss were working on maintaining a satellite repair factory. Astronaut Brian Harper, a friend of Joss, discovers a strange swarm of nanotech creatures approaching them. Invaders attack the satellite. Alan Marcus and another astronaut are lost despite Brian's efforts to save them as he is thrown back by the swarm. Brian is able to reach Joss's shuttle and sail them back to Earth. After his allegations of the swarm attacking them were dismissed as crazy talk by NASA 18 months later, Brian lost his reputation with the agency. His relationship with Joe deteriorates and he ends up divorcing Brenda, his wife. Sonny grows apart from his father after she goes to Jersey with them. Megastructurist Casey Halsman enters the University of California illegally 10 years later to collect data on strange moon activity. The unusual readings from the moon's orbital track are confirmed when he reports to work his regular employment at a fast food restaurant. Later on, Casey visits Alzheimer's patient mother's Elaine. Jo is now divorced from her ex-husband, General Douglas Davidson, but she continues to work for NASA. Jimmy has joint custody with his parents, and Jo also homes Michelle, a foreign exchange student who also looks after Jimmy. Jo learns about the weird moon activity at work. When Brian actually arrives, Casey poses as him as she was asked to speak on a class field trip to museum. Casey makes an effort to explain his readings and knowledge about the moon approaching Earth, but Brian rejects him and orders security to remove Casey. However, not before Casey has thrown his material for Brian to read. Brian is now a hermit, while Brenda is remarried to Tom Lopez and has two kids, Nikki and Lauren, with him. Brenda contacts Brian because she saw Sonny being pursued by the cops on the TV. After being detained, Brian tries to attend Sonny's bail hearing. However, due to Brian's interruptions and the lawyer's statement that money is not an issue, the court postpones his hearing for a week, keeping Sonny in custody for that time. News of the moon leaving this orbit spreads as Brian tries to buy the judge's release for Sonny. Joe's colleagues predict that they only have a little more than 3 weeks before the moon begins to fragment, sending debris of the city's size flying across the planet. To examine the currents on the moon, NASA arranges a shuttle launch with a crew of 3 astronauts. When the swarm comes into contact with astronauts, it surrounds the shuttle before invading and killing the crew, as witnessed back by NASA. Around the world, violence and looting all break out as panic sets in. Soon after, California is devastated by a tsunami, and when Casey is washed away by the waves, Brian must rescue him. Joe searches the old National Archives and discovers helmet cam footage from Brian's suit during the first unsuccessful trip after studying the shuttle film and seeing a hole carved in the crater floor. She is discovered by a man named Holden Field, who works in the archives and claims that NASA is hiding information concerning the 1969 lunar landing. Brian, who is still upset with Joe because he feels she put him under the bus after their previous expedition, is brought in to meet her as she tries to assemble a crew for a second mission. They discover a knee barricade that was created to exterminate the swarm, and they borrow a shuttle from a museum to attempt to launch it into orbit. Brian makes arrangements for Sonny to be free from jail so that she can meet Brenda and her family at Tom's Caving in Colorado before the assignment is assigned. Jimmy and Michelle join him as they travel there since another catastrophe is about to happen. Joe and Brian act rapidly to get the mission into motion. with Casey being requested to join since he understands about megastructures more than they do. They all board the shuttle, and the crew lifts off just as a massive ocean wave is about to pound the city due to gravitational anomaly. On the way to Colorado, Sonny and Michelle become close, and Sonny tells Doug that Jimmy is okay. They are forced to walk after being robbed by a trio of criminals when they are on their way. Michelle hangs on to Jimmy as they are lifted into the air by another gravitational shift. They eventually get to Tom's house, but not before a crazed woman with a pistol shoots them because she believes they are invaders. The trio arrives at the moon in orbit and discovers the swarm engulfing it. The bomb is placed in a position where the swarm can grasp it, but they see that it doesn't get that close. The swarm keeps attacking their shuttle until their electronics are taken out. The crew discovers that the swarm is purposely staying away from electronics. Joe thinks there are two distinct entities on the moon, and one of them is making an effort to assist them. The group arrives at the moon's base, where Brian is greeted by the operating system of the moon, which appears to be Sunny when she is a little child. According to the OS, the swarm is an artificial intelligence developed by prehistoric people. Before establishing a base on the moon and relying on the energy of a white dwarf in the core, the swarm developed a mind of its own, killed its creators, and began to feed on them. The internal structure has become unstable, which has caused the moon to change its orbit. The OS informs Brian that a human must remain behind in order to overthrow the AI. Sonny, Michelle, and Jimmy return to Earth and join Tom and his family as they escape. The previous criminals attempt to rob them, but Sonny and Tom deter them with their firearms. The criminals try to run them off the road by pursuing them as they flee to their car. After that, the moon generates another gravitational shift as pieces of Earth's mass start to separate from the surface. Meanwhile, in a desperate attempt to save everyone, the President of the United States orders nuclear weapons to be fired towards the moon. As the air begins to get thin, Sonny, Tom, and others put on oxygen masks and move to a cave for protection. Tom gives Nikki his oxygen mask when she runs out of oxygen. He tells Nikki to keep walking before he passes away as he begins to lose his breath. Sonny and Michelle try to go find Tom as Nikki finds her family and the oxygen starts to return. But Sonny is knocked to the ground by a fallen tree, which pins him down. To deliver the bomb to the swarm, the trio on the moon makes one final effort. Doug threatens his colleagues with a gun to stop them from destroying the moon because he still has faith that Joe can save them. Brian tries to give himself up to stay behind and deliver the bomb as the group approaches, but Casey steps in to take his place. He feels that unlike Brian and Joe, who must return to their families, he has the opportunity to finally accomplish something in his life. The swarm surrounds his pod as Brian and Joe bid him farewell. He then detonates the device, destroying the swarm and returning the moon to its proper place. Joe and Brian can take off on a pod because they are so near the planet. Joe and Brian succeed in reaching their loved ones. After hearing about Tom's demise, Brian informs Brenda that he was a wonderful man. Sonny is also informed that Casey has saved the planet. His consciousness is uploaded to the base back on the moon. The operating system, which seems to find him as a mother, introduces itself. They are going to begin something major. Casey is informed. Please watch Moonfall if you haven't already. Post your reviews in the box below as comments. Please like the video and don't forget to subscribe for more. We'll speak with you once more soon.
Stay away, my brothers and sisters! Stay away!